Welcome all of you. A very warm welcome to L2A, an institute which has made its mark, and we have a living testimony of that with us today. So I'm Nadeem Shah, and I'm a faculty of history here at L2A, and I'm here to lead this particular session and to facilitate one of the most impressive aspirants that I have seen in my life, and there's no exaggeration about it. I was having a word with Balu sir yesterday, and I was asking things about PK Sidharth Ramkumar, a man all of you must know about now. He's a single digit rank holder. He secured 4th rank in the UPSC final examination this time. अब कहाँ से शुरू करूँगी, एक बहुत मुश्किल सवाल है, लेकिन जो बहुत मोटी सी बात मेरी समझ में आती है कि जब यूपीएससी की प्रिपरेशन के लिए हम आते हैं तो जिससे भी मिली है सबकी एक राय होती है, सबकी एक ओपिनियन होती है, एंड यू नो देयर फ्लरी ऑफ ओपिनियंस एंड एक्सपीरियंसेस दैट you'll get to see, and finally you begin to wonder what exactly we are looking at and how to go about for this preparation. And here when I look at Bala sir and I look at Sidharth, I think this is one of the classic examples that you can think of when you talk about UPSC preparation and final exam and final selection into it. Talking about Bala sir, I really wonder, for last 8 years, mark it, last 8 years, not even one single year went by when L2A has not produced a single digit rank holder in the final examination. These are the facts. You can't temper facts. You can always go about, talking big words. But if you talk about actions and results, this is what the results are. And Bala sir, honestly, I did not know about it because I wouldn't see much of promotions, much of anything about L2A. He's consistently doing his work. But now, coming to the more important aspect for where we are today, we have with us PK Sidharth Ramkumar, and a big round of applause for him to begin with. And what to talk about him? In fact, कहा जाता है कि भाई सामने किसी की तारीफ करना वो चापलूसी होती है, लेकिन फिर वही बात है, ultimately facts speak for themselves. अब बड़े बड़े बोल कि भाई perseverance, consistency, discipline, strategy, that is what he personifies. It was his 4th attempt when he made it to the 4th rank in UPSC. But what before that? जो कीवर्ड्स जितने भी आप मोटिवेशनल स्पीचेस में, मोटिवेशनल स्पीकर्स और ये बड़ी बड़ी इंस्टीट्यूट्स के जो बड़े बड़े जो आई वुड कॉल देम, आई वुडंट यूज एनी डेरोगेटरी वर्ड फॉर देम, ऑफ कोर्स दे आर डूइंग देयर वर्क, consistency and perseverance. He comes from a moderate background from Kerala, did not go to any fancy institutions as such, if I'm not wrong. Sidharth, correct me if I'm wrong. Did not go to any fancy institutes. All he had was perseverance, focus, and of course the guidance that he needed for, and he made best of it. In his very first attempt, he reached the interview, missing the final selection only by 3 marks. In his second attempt, he made it to the final selections. He had 189th rank. In the third attempt, it went to 121st rank, and in the final attempt, he made it to top 10. Not top 10, not top 10, top 5. I'm getting maximum marks in anthropology in the whole country, I guess. I don't think anybody has gotten better marks than him. So in that, doing his work, nothing fancy about his preparation or anything. He's just focused, getting best of it, learning from his experiences, and being perseverant with the sense that he has to constantly improve and strategizing, taking into account his experiences. Imagine how difficult would it be that he's taking training and then preparing for it yet again. Maintaining consistency throughout and working on those critical areas. So these are the things that, I'm here only for a few minutes, but he has lived that for past 4 years, and that is how he has made it. And of course, talking about L2A and Sidharth, I don't think I should come in the middle anymore.
I think I'm audible. So I'll just introduce myself again. I'm PK Sidharth Ramkumar. I come from Cochin in Kerala. I'm a graduate in architecture from Kerala University. I graduated in 2019, and towards 2019 end I started my Anthro preparation. 2019 November December, if I'm not wrong. I did 3 months classroom coaching in L2A, and I gave my 2020 attempt. Again, I got reserve list, and I got into Indian Post and Telecom Accounts and Finance Service. That year I got about 281 marks. Then next year I got rank 189, Anthro mark was 268. I got into Indian Police Service, West Bengal cadre. And next year, last year I got rank 121, no change of service. And this year I got Anthro 326 marks. So this is my brief journey. So I'll just quickly jump into the strategy and preparation and everything. So basically I'll start with my like sources and what all did I refer to for Anthro. So I come from a design planning background. I did not know which optional to pick, but then I wanted to pick an optional where you can complete it in 3 months, where the content is easily available and where people have scored easily and consistently. So at that time around 2018, from 2018 if I'm not wrong, Anthro has been consistently performing, and every year at least 2 people are getting 300 plus. So from a very realistic standpoint, I selected Anthro because it was high scoring, because you can complete it in 3 months. And resources are easily available. And then I found the syllabus also decent and interesting. And then I came to L2A. I did 3 months coaching here. I did like made all the notes, and I tried to complete all the basic books also. So the basic books included. So yeah, I read Vivek Basme sir's book. It's a very simple book, but then it was good initially because I was able to understand, get a bird's eye view about the whole subject, and it was like you could complete the book easily in about a month or so if you put in decent amount of time. And then, so that was Vivek Basme sir's book, and then I had L2A notes, so it took 3-4 months for doing the L2A classroom notes and compiling it and making it short. Then for physical, I did read the Peanath book, which usually it was in market every day, everyone was reading that. So I did read Peanath fully, and then I made some short notes from Peanath for physical by Anthropology. And for socio-cultural, I did read LP Vidyarthi and Nadeem Hasnan sir's book, and the usual list of books that everyone said I did read, and I had made some short notes. So I didn't read any of the books a second time. I read it once, I had highlighted some things, and I had made some short notes, like hardly 5-10 page notes from 5-10-20 pages max from Peanath, from Hasnan sir's books and all that. And mostly I relied on L2A notes and Vivek Basme sir's book. Like Vivek Basme sir's book helped in a way that it was in a question answer format, and it was simple enough. Like I think it is also important to keep the preparation and everything simple. And then I added L2A notes for value addition. So that was there, and then that year I got about 281. And next year I added my sources, like added on to my sources from EPG Pathshala selectively, and then IGNO notes also a little selectively wherever I felt there was a shortage for 250 mark or 300 words, 250 words. I added from EPG, I added from IGNO, and this time around I also added from some research articles from JSTOR. You can freely get it if you log in with your Gmail account. So I think in Anthro, like in all the other GS subjects for mains especially, I think it is quite predictable, although they say it is becoming dynamic, it is becoming a little dicey here and there. I think still the preparation doesn't change much, sources doesn't change much. I think mostly the questions and the answers, everything revolves around PYQ, the syllabus areas, and a little bit of, mostly it will revolve around PYQ alone. If you solve or if you just look into last 10 years is also good enough. Like if you look into all the questions of both paper 1 and paper 2 for Anthro for last 10 years, like every single question, I think you can predict much of the options, much of the answers. And if you have, like if you can prepare some good answers for everything, like let's say there are some questions which sound difficult, like a certain site from Neolithic or Mesolithic from a certain area, from West Asian Neolithic or West Asian this thing. I think that particular name of the site might sound difficult initially, But then I think the question basically just requires you to write more about the general thing that you studied about that area. You studied about Mesolithic, you studied about Neolithic, you have names of certain sites, you have characteristics, what are the tools used, what are the technology that was available, how was the evolution, what was the different sociocultural characteristics that you can possibly deduce from the same. So all those are generally same, and if you can connect it to the site, if you can connect all the other background information and then add some specifics to the question that is being asked, I think that is good enough. So generally there is a doubt whether like whenever you see one question out of this thing, or like let's say a thinker, like there was one on Mortimer Wheeler. Mortimer Wheeler still like usually studied, but then not that much study. Like there are some anthropologists whom you will study extensively, like LP Vidyarthi sir or some other very well known anthropologists. But then there will be some lesser known thinkers whom we might not have prepared so well, but then a question on them might come for 10 marker, 15 marker, 20 marker. So you will have to write about the same. Like if you do not have a choice, you have to write. But I think if you can, if you look into the PYQ, many of the names would have at least come here or there, and if you had prepared at least like for a 5 marker, 10 marker, you can then add some background information, add according to the question, and then complete, like make a good enough answer. So questions that come beyond the PYQ, questions that come beyond the syllabus are very few, and even if they come, the content that you studied for the syllabus areas is good enough for the same. Now, okay, schedule and how did I complete anthropology? So I completed Anthro mostly from L2A itself in that 3 months, early 2020. By Jan-Feb 2020, I think I had made notes and I had read L2A notes and Vivek Basme sir's book and the basic books, Peanut and all that, and then I had made short notes. So by that 2020 prelims, I had completed like one reading and decent amount of reading about the basic books and the value addition from L2A. So that was, so it took me like hardly 5-6 months. I think for any decent aspirant, I think in 6 months you can complete one reading. Like you might not be very confident in answer writing, but you can complete the reading and basic understanding in 5-6 months easily. And 5-6 months also, like you can give, even if you can give 3 hours a day, 2-3 hours a day consistently, I think it's good enough. More the better, obviously. And I think so it depends on when you start also. So depending on when you start preparation for Anthro, if you're starting in June, July and you are starting with GS and Anthro straight away, I think you can give about 5-6 months good amount of time and complete note making, complete basic reading and add all the value addition for the mains Anthro part and stop around Jan-Feb so that you can focus on prelims. And after prelims and mains, so I mostly gave roughly 30-40% of the time for Anthro and rest for GS. Like it's very difficult. Some people have a tendency to focus more on Anthro. Some people, I mean the optional. Some people focus more on the GS part. I think it's important to balance both GS and optional, even between prelims and mains. So I think like even if you give 1/3 of the time between prelims and mains, it's good enough. So that's about the time management and note making. I think for optional and GS, especially for the entire mains, it's very important to make notes. It's very important to have short notes, and every time you revise, it's important to make it even shorter, make it even more crisper. Like make structures, reduce it into diagrams, reduce it into mnemonics or whatever, so that by the time so this time my short notes for the last revision, even though I had a lot of notes, finally I had reduced it to 30-40 pages for the entire paper 2, and I had made it like both online, like soft copy and hard copy. I had this thing. So even between paper 1 and paper 2, the point being you should be able to revise it at least once, the entire notes, the value addition, everything. If it's just 30 pages, 40 pages, if you can reduce it finally into that form, that will be better for the final revision. But because initially you will be having 100-page, 200-page notes, like revise it, highlight it, make it into diagrams, reduce it, and finally have a very short, crisp amount of notes. The final notes should not even be having sentences. It should just be the words, keywords, everything. Like a whole mains topic can have 1 page of note. So the entire note should ideally be complete, including case studies. Even the case study should not, ideally the final note should not go beyond 1 line or 2 line. It should have all the facts, all the content and everything, but then the note should not ideally go beyond 1 line or 2 line. Okay, and then connecting. I mean, everyone talks about connecting paper 1, paper 2. So I think GS, mains, Anthro, everything, most of the things are very predictive. It's still pays, it still works the same way, almost the same way it worked last few years. So I think connecting paper 1 content and paper 2. So generally paper 1 is theory, like most of the effort that you put in would be for paper 1. Most of the theory content, everything you learn would be for paper 1, and paper 2 would generally be more dynamic, more Indian, a little current, a little analysis, sometimes questions about analyzing a particular, any one tribal scheme or any one tribal this thing, or comparing tribes between central India, South India, Northeast India, something a little more on the analytical side. And paper 1 would be more generally on the theoretical side, a little more content heavy. So I think paper 2, but then still you have to, realistically you should have 250 words, or how much ever words is being asked. So to come up with dimensions, to come up with the points, I think it's important to connect paper 1. And the whole point of having paper 1 is that it helps you in analyzing. What is theory for? Theory is for helping, I mean, very few questions will be directly from the theory. What is a thinker? A question on thinker, a question on theory will be like, there will be 1 or 2 questions, 1 or 2 full questions at max. But the point is you should be able to use those theories easily in paper 2 for analyzing. Even for analyzing something like the tribal scheme, or let's say a thinker, an Indian anthropologist's contribution to anthropology or tribal studies or social caste studies and everything, you should be able to somehow connect theories. And somewhere I think it's important to go beyond just evolutionary and diffusion theories, because those are the basic theories. Everyone, quickly it comes easily to your mind, but I think somewhere using the middle thinkers like Strauss or the culture personality school, or even if you can go a little more beyond postmodernism and everything, if you have prepared some decent content, I think you can use them to analyze content, to make comparisons, to give a theoretical standpoint for the questions that are being asked in paper 2. So that's about connecting paper 1 and paper 2. And then there is the dilemma between what is more important, answer writing or note making. So again, it's all individualistic, I think, depending on what you feel is comfortable. But for first serious attempt or the first 2 serious attempts, I think answer writing is important. So my approach was, my first attempt, like first serious attempt 2020 CSE, I got 281. Before that prelims itself, I had given some tests in L2A, and I wanted to know, and I remember I asked sir also whether I'll be getting around 150. So my target was 300. Anything above 300 is like luck, I believe, even now. And I think 280 is gettable if you prepare well, if you are confident in the answer writing, and if you write decently. I think 280 plus is very much gettable. So I did write about 7-8 tests in 2020, if I'm not wrong, and I used to get around every time 130, 135 plus, and like most of the time I was able to get 140, 145. So I got some confidence that if I write in such manner, with some in that way, what intro can I give? Can I give intro in this way? Can I give body in this way? Conclusion in this way? Because I didn't have a background, so I just wanted to make sure if I do it this way, I'll get it right, at least somewhere around right. So I was getting 140, so I was confident, decently confident, that if I write it in this way with this kind of value addition, this kind of structure, I might be able to get around 140 at least. So once I was decently sure about that thing, I did not get much time also after that for mains writing. So I did not rely much on answer writing after my first after that attempt. 2020 attempt I did not write much answers. 2021 attempt also I did not write. I would have hardly written 1 paper. 22 and last 2 attempts I did not give any anthro attempt, not a single anthro question. But then I did try to brainstorm. So in fact it is only in this attempt that I completely brainstormed all the last 10 years PYQs, every single question I tried to look into what intro I'll give, what body, what all points can I give, how could I structure it, what are the value addition that I can add, but I did not write the entire answer. And I had prepared intro conclusion for all the main syllabus areas, just like GS. Interesting content, I tried to add some interesting content after going through topos copies. And like you can add a lot from even books, general books related to anthropology. Like everyone will be knowing about Sapiens and this thing, Harari and everyone. So there are some more thinkers who are very famous, even Diamond, Guns, Germs and Steel. Then you have thinkers in bio, you have thinkers in archaeology, Petraglia. There are many thinkers who are quite famous. There are books like Exercised. It's a very general book, but it's written by a Harvard scientist who works on physical anthropology also. So he talks about things which can be connected to genetics. It can be used in comparison in analysis. So some thinkers who are famous, who are contemporary, who have written some good books which have some value addition. So I try to use them in conclusions, introductions, and some comparison or analysis here and there. Okay, and then okay, so I was asked some particular questions. So I'll just complete some more. Whether content heavy or innovation heavy, again, just like mains test series, is it answer writing or brainstorming? So my approach is more brainstorming after initial attempt giving test series. Content heavy or innovation heavy, I think optional is one place where you have to have the basic content. So basic content, just restrict the sources, but then have some good content, some value addition, and all that. Content should be heavy, I feel, unlike in GS where still you can probably get away with innovation analysis, but here content should be there. Like if something related to archaeology is there, you should have basic idea, genetics, basic idea, content should be there, and some innovation here and there. So few of the things that I tried personally was like, one, to add some of my own content. So I had architecture background, I had some settlement studies, like very few, and it was mostly done in college only, one rural settlement study and an urban settlement study. We had a study in Jaipur, we had a study in a village called Shimoga, Maturu village in Shimoga. So it was like the only Sanskrit teaching, speaking village in India or something. And then there's a handicraft village in Kerala. So we had done some studies. So I just wanted to make my answers also a little bit unique and some personal content in my this thing, which was related to the topic obviously. So I try to add that a little. Then, toppers have previously also mentioned that it is important to connect to the governance angle. So this time in preparing some intro conclusions and some analysis, I try to add what angle, like a scheme. Like let's say you're learning genetics. The question might be very theoretical side of genetics, what is this, what is that, but then somewhere you can add a governance angle, like connected to a scheme, connected to some law, connected to how it could be important for governance, how it can be used, how that insight could be used in solving India's problems, like India is a TB capital or India is this capital, something like that. So some governance angle, some public policy relevance angle, if you can bring about, could possibly be useful, I feel. And it also in a way helps you in preparation, because you also feel that you are trying to connect, you are trying to solve something which is related to policy, which is related to actual things which you are trying to be part of. Then again, paper 1, paper 2 connecting, like I think one way to come up with the options, like dimensions in answer writing, if you get stuck, is going about with the syllabus. Just like in ethics or some of the GS areas, I think if at all you have a paucity of content at some point, it might be useful to look at the syllabus for pointers, for dimensions. Like even let's say it's a question on socio-cultural anthropology, but I feel if it is relevant, because we have this both socio-bio evolution and all that, if you can add the biological angle in a very pertinent manner connected to the question, it might fetch you a little more. Like I think making it a little more rounded in Anthro especially is helpful, because Anthro is like it's always 4 parts, if not more. We have more and more schools of Anthro emerging every day. So I think the more dimensions that you can add, like even if it is a physical anthro question or archaeological question, even in archaeology, for instance, there is archaeolinguistics, like how language evolved. There is thinkers who have studied about the migration of language, just like the migration of man, just like the migration of primates. So I think adding the dimensions, connecting it with the different sides of the syllabus will also possibly help. Okay, so I was asked some particular questions. I'll just look into those. Okay, so which questions did you attempt and possibly explain a couple of the questions, some 10 markers. So I'll analyze that finally. I'll take last year's questions and I'll just say which all questions I tried and what was the approach generally every time. Then okay, so one question is like, how did I make my answers different? So as I said, I try to add a little bit of my own content. Again, since I was coming from a little bit of design planning background, I try to make a list of things which I could possibly connect it with Anthro, and I made a list of like 4 or 5 things. And then secondly, I try to add the governance policy angle, Thirdly, I try to connect paper 1, paper 2, all the syllabus areas, like interconnecting the syllabus areas extensively. So these are 3 things that I think worked for me. And fourthly, also I try to add a little bit extra content, case studies. Like case studies also, I feel even in, just like in GS, I think the amount of details that you can add in the case study, like it should be short, but then it should still be heavy in details. Like let's say you quote a case study, like a study by this person, showed the same. That there is no new value addition. You're just quoting a thinker, you're just quoting a study, but you're not giving any new insight. But it would be better if you are trying to substantiate a point with a case study. You are quoting the thinker, well and good, but then give 1 or 2 insights also from the study. You can get the insights quickly. You go into JST or you search for the study, you look for the first abstract or the final recommendations, just take 2-3 points, make it very short. 1 line also you can add like slash 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, but have some specifics. Like so tribal case studies, there are lots of case studies, but I try to look into JSTOR for some concrete recommendations. So like there are the Khasi kingdoms in Meghalaya. So there are some details about how much, like there was a comparison on what is the budget that they are getting compared to the budget of the state assembly. So how you can study the comparison between the relevance or the powers that are given to 6th schedule vis-a-vis the state government, like in terms of actual numbers. So they're giving some statistics, some factual content, making a comparison that increases the detail. So the whole point, even though the whole case study would have been reduced to 2 lines, but then the content was a little more detailed. So I think increasing the factual, the specificity of the case study also helps. And it makes your answers also unique, because the case study, the name of the thinker, the name of the study, everyone is using. It's being used every time, everyone, the same topper, thinker. So add a little bit of your unique content and add some more details. Like make it proper analysis type thing in very short number of words or lines. And how to prepare for archaeology, since there are many sides in changing nature of questions interlinking. So archaeology, again, I think archaeology, one of the good things about archaeology is that if you prepare archaeology the first time properly, one basic book or one basic source, and like if you're taking L2A notes and then you're reading, I think for L2A, for archaeology I read D.K. Bhattacharya's one book, and then I had made some short notes, like 10-15 page notes I had made about that. Like it had given some like fresh content and some insights also. Like even while learning for archaeology in that 3 months from L2A, archaeology was slightly confusing. Like it is difficult to get the chronology from the beginning to the end, to remember, to understand the terms. And so I thought for archaeology at least it was important. Archaeology and physical also. Like cultural is it's slightly easier to understand. It's easier on the mind. It's easier on the eyes also while you are reading. But then archaeology and physical bio part, I felt personally I should read a little more, have a basic understanding, reduce it into short notes, connect the things. So I read for bio, physical and archaeology, D.K. Bhattacharya and P. Nath. And then I had made some short notes and a basic understanding. And wherever I was short, as I said, I added from EPG and IGNO. So I made a basic understanding, made some short notes, added some value addition from L2A and other toppers. And that was what I did for archaeology. So archaeology, I think basically 1-page note for everything. So you have syllabus areas like the different paleo, meso, neo and sub this thing, and area wise, old world, new world, old world, where all. Like you have 1-page note for everything. Hardly it will take 10 pages. The whole archaeology is over, including tools, including the diagrams, including this thing. So have just extensive notes, but very short, 1-page, 1.5-page note for everything. Then look into PYQs, look into how things are being asked. So either a site is being asked or a thinker is being asked related to paleology, like Mortimer Wheeler or professor, like some thinker might be asked, or a site may be asked, or some comparison might be asked. So just think about how well you can structure and come up with 15 good points, 20 good points, and make dimensions. Like you don't have to write the full answer, like come up with the dimensions and short notes. Like it is like 20 lines, 20 points, 20 lines. Brainstorm for the PYQs. So in that way, plus you have made the notes, you've brainstormed the PYQs, you've made content structures. I think that in that way archaeology is good enough. And you have, if you have good idea about the various cultural evolution stages, you have diagrams, you have thinkers, you have some new insights also. Like for archaeology also some value addition I had taken, like the David Rees book on who we are and how we got here, the migration of humans from Africa to the different continents, how that is correlated with language. And even from newspaper I searched, there's an author called Tony Joseph. He's a journalist actually. He wrote about early humans in India or early Indians or something. Like some value addition you can add from here and there. Just because it's contemporary, it will have a little more analysis. It will be, and then you can connect it to the static thinkers. So you've added value addition, you solve the PYQs, you have basic idea. Even if you have very little clue about something like a site, but you know it is somewhere related to Meso, late Meso, Neo. And the good thing about Meso, Neo and all is like it is in chronology. Even if it is Neolithic, Mesolithic, things will continue. It's just little less, it's little more, it's just about that. I mean, so you can, if you have basic understanding, you can work with the same. Then, so there will be some questions. As I said, like there will be not much content. How will you write for the specific part? So this time I remember there was one question. I'll just take the question this year's paper. So I think there was a question on Malinowski and Mead, Margaret Mead, and I remember I had to write that question because all the other combinations, like this was the better combination amongst the others. So I had to write the same. So this year's question, I think one is scope and relevance of social and cultural anthropology, 10 marker. I think this is this year's. So that was very easy. Scope and relevance of social and cultural anthropology. It's 10 marker. It's 2 pages. One is scope. One is relevance. And again, so you have for socio-cultural anthropology, you have 2 pages, 2 subheadings. You write with thinkers, with theory. That's decent. Race and ethnicity, again direct. You have some case studies about race, ethnicity. You can connect it with Indian also. Even in scope and relevance of socio-cultural anthropology, remember to add Indian thinkers, Professor Vidyarthi or Professor Dubey or something. And then race and ethnicity, again try to connect it with how, like generally you will be having some thinker studies, what is race, what is ethnicity, how they are related, what is the relevance, all that. Connect it with Indian scenario also, like the races in India or some study or how migration happened or how it is contributing to some issues or something. Customary laws and environmental conservation, again you can connect it to nature man spirit complex. You can use the, like just try be open to connecting paper 1, paper 2, try, and you have ecological anthropology, you have Rapoport, like all the thinkers of ecological anthro, you have Andrew Veda and all thinkers. You can connect everyone, you can use all them liberally. Like just remembering the thinkers itself gives you 5 points, but be like just be sure that you are connecting it with the relevance of the question, the demand of the question. Question is it's about customary laws and environmental conservation. So you can talk about how it is good, how it is contributing to environmental conservation, how it is not. You can talk about potlatch, you can talk about big man societies, you can talk about Indian examples, Indian tribal case studies, societies and all that. Even you can even end it with some, as I said, with some relevance to governance, relevance to some preservation of some community, how even SDG, like it's a little far-fetched, but you can try to connect it with governance, you can try to connect it with some contemporary relevance. Don't overdo it, but then you can do it in conclusion or somewhere. Gene expression, again direct question, gene expression, how it works, give a diagram how the thing works, and you can connect it, like end it with this thing like Sidharth Mukherjee sir's book on the gene, or like some relevant book, some relevant content you can add to add relevance. Or as I said, you can connect it to public policy, how it can help in solving any particular health crisis in India, something like that. Second question was discuss major species of Australopithecus discovered from South and East Africa, discover the discovery, physical features and significance of two-young baby. So it is Australopithecus africanus, if I am not wrong. So whatever species that it's talking about, you have prepared 1-page note. It's about 20 pages, 15, 20 marks. 4 pages. I think you will be having enough content. You will be having diagram. You will be having the map where it is in Africa, which all places it's found. What is the relevance? What is the age? What are the different species? So you will have enough content. It's a direct question. Then discuss the Paleolithic environment in light of available evidences with reference to India. Again, Paleolithic in India is a PYQ. Even if it is not directly in paper 2, also you have to learn about Paleolithic in India. Be sure to connect it with the fossils that are found in India. which all fossils, Narmada man was there in Middle Paleo if I'm not wrong. So just connected with the fossils, connected with the relevance, and even certain latest references like findings about primates that are found in India, you can add them also sparingly. And Paleolithic environment. So in Paleolithic environment, you can also talk about how the environment is not just the this thing, how the species of fossils change. You can also talk about how the climate changed. So there was some C3, C4 vegetation change, how the dry climate changed to moist or something. So there were changes that happened. Just like be sure that you are talking about the different angles which are already in the syllabus. Like ecological anthro is already part of the syllabus. So ideally you should be having some content on how the climate changed, how the vegetation changed, how the species changed, and all that. And with evidence with reference to India. So again, try to add thinkers from India who found so the first Paleolithic tools like found in South India. So you have the Madrasian school. So like add references, add notes from those parts, and then so that is also pretty decent question. Then next question is different forms of malnutrition. Describe protein calorie malnutrition with suitable examples. Again, direct question like malnutrition, nutritional anthropology, or if you have prepared one-page note on nutritional anthropology with case studies. You have 3-4 case studies. As I said, I spoke about that exercise book by Lieberman or some other books and some studies, and taking examples from some tribes in India also, how it affected, what is the status now, what is their this percentage, what is their life expectancy, not their nutrition, compared it with some tribes. And sometimes PYQs also help you in some other ways. Like there was a particular question one year about comparing the status of tribes in India, Australia and New Zealand. So that also gives you a dimension, that comparison of tribes between India, New Zealand and Australia and US. These 4 are the major areas. US has a lot of native Indians. New Zealand is one place where the Maori, the main tribes, are very dominant, and they were relatively more having more rights. So comparing the rights, comparing the situation, that gives you an extra angle in a tribal question related to India also. Even if it is about talking about tribal situation in India, you can talk about how a certain scheme or certain act empowered the tribals in US. Like there was some acts, like I had made like one para note on tribal situation in US, all that, because it was a PYQ. And how Maoris, like which law, some name, some specifics, so how that helped them. You can add comparison also. Then, so the difficult question I remember was about Margaret. Critically discuss the controversies related to fieldwork of Bronislaw Malinowski and Margaret Mead. So I remember I had to write that question because other questions sounded more difficult for me, and somehow 20 marks I knew something about Malinowski, something about Margaret Mead, so I had to write it. And in hindsight, I think it didn't bring me much of a disadvantage. I got 169 in paper 1. There is definitely an amount of luck, but still I think because it's all about selecting the questions that you are like relatively more comfortable. So there was that question. Then impact of globalization, which is direct. Practical applications of DNA technology, again direct. So 30 out of 50 is very easy, and in this 20 also I thought, even if I have some basic content of Malinowski, Margaret Mead, and some criticism, like when you are studying about the thinker, you have some criticism that you prepare for the thinkers, so you will still, I thought at least for 10 marker I would have had some content, and the rest 15 I have very good content. So I was confident about 40 out of 50. And the other questions, one was qualitative data analysis. I did not have very good content. I did have some, but not very good. And popular computer software, that is for 20 marker. So I did prepare some technology about like Google genome and all that, but then still for 20 marker it was very less. So I didn't choose that combination of questions. There was another question, what assumptions must be met for a population to be in genetic equilibrium? Relatively easier. You can talk about the Hardy-Weinberg and then some comparison and all that. But the whole 20 marker computer genome question, that was like out of the blue, so I did not select that combination. Political methodological aspects of national character studies. Again, national character studies is one thing we prepare, but political and methodological aspects in particular is not something we are very comfortable with. So I didn't take that. Then the next question combination was Arjun Appadurai's conceptualization of global cultural economy. Again, I had some content about the different techno, this thing and all, but still I didn't have enough content for 20 marker. Another was cause of structural abnormalities of chromosomes, direct. Discuss A.L. Kroeber's contribution to kinship studies. I did have content, but then I did not revise Kroeber's contribution multiple times, so I was not very confident. So I chose I mean, still you have to have two, so I think I would have chosen that or the other one, but still I had to choose the Margaret Mead this thing, so that combination. So I went ahead with whatever I knew initially about their criticism, like Malinowski. Like in criticism also there are some techniques, like just think about the different theories. Everyone who came after Malinowski would have criticized Malinowski, like how his theory fell short, even the postmodernists, how the structuralists, how the other neo-evolutionists, and everyone, whoever came after him, how they criticized. And if you can add some specifics, like if you remember the study of Bronislawski, Trobriand Islanders, something he would have missed something. Like there were some points, I am not able to recollect the exact things that I studied, but there were 2 or 3 specifics that I remember about, that I had remembered about those studies, which I had pointed out. And then I added those as criticism, then used the thinkers to add the criticism. Then about Margaret Mead also there was lots of criticism. There was the famous Freeman or Newman, I don't remember, there was a controversy, Freeman versus Margaret Mead, saying that the study, how Freeman tried to contradict and all that. So I had read about that, so I had some content. Then again Margaret Mead, you connected with which theory is she connected to, so what is the basic tenets, and who came later, how did they contradict all that, and how did Freeman, so the Freeman controversy was the whole point of the question is what I feel, because much of the controversies were around whether there was a ethnocentric angle, whether she came up with a predetermined this thing and then she was imposing the angle, this thing, and all that, and did she take into factor in the change that was happening and all that. So some basic points I had, then I had prepared, and then I tried to use the syllabus itself to come up with points. So the whole point is, like, even if you it's a 50 marker, no? 15, 15, 20. So even if you are confident only about the 15, 15 and you have some idea about the 20 marker and you feel that combination is relatively better than the other combinations, I think you should still go with it. And you can, like, if you answer it in a very decent manner, you have a proper introduction, well spaced, if you have added all the relevant background details, some criticism, made it rounded, added more dimensions, you will still be getting more likes, and it's very likely that you will be getting more marks than a person who actually knows more about that particular question. So the way you present it, the way you add more dimensions, the way you add a little analysis and criticism, make it more rounded, that also helps. And then, as I said, even though people say it's becoming very dynamic and all, even in that 50 marker combination, at least 2 questions are very direct. You talk about Australopithecus, it's direct. You talk about malnutrition, it is direct. Hominization process, very direct. All the evolution of brain, evolution of the leg, evolution of fingers, evolution, it is very direct. You have diagrams, you have enough content. And if you want to embellish it a little more, you can add some new content which you would have prepared, like some recent, like how evolution is still happening in terms of like genetic evolution or something, how hominization is still moving forward and all that. You can even add Homo deus or something, like if you want, if you're interested. Then how did Clifford Geertz look at religion? Again direct, like not very direct, but still Geertz and religion, his definition about religion is very famous. His analysis, his study on that, the different religions in Bali, how that particular cultural cockfight, he tried to analyze it and all that. It's relatively easier, direct. Differentiate between anthropological and psychological approaches to the study of religion, again direct. Anthropological study, psychological, you can add even Freud, like you have at least 5-7 thinkers which you will definitely study. So you add all those, add a little criticism, and I try to add some Indian thinkers also. Like I think I tried to add Professor Saraswati, and he had some Nilakanta syndrome. It is part of paper 2, but I try to connect it because it is related to Indian religion, society, culture, and that, what is it, some complex is there, no, in paper 2. So basically parts of the paper 2 and paper 1 were connected. Thinkers of paper 1, Indian thinkers, Indian studies were also liberally connected to paper 1 questions. What is mixed merits, what are the demerits? But when you are in such kind of questions, I did not have much content from otherwise, so I got some few content from Busmacer's book, few from some topper notes. But again, I think if you have seen such questions in PYQ, or if it is specifically written in the syllabus, I think it's better that you prepare a little more content on them. Just Google them, prepare a 1-page note, so that even if it doesn't directly come, you can use it in some other form. So one of the other things that I remember now that I did try to innovate was that I try to add some like dimensions from the DU Anthro syllabus. So DU 2019 Anthro syllabus like was given very detailed in a very detailed manner, and it had given tables and content like with softwares. Like the level of detail in that was like a little like very more. I mean much more than what was actually needed. But then there were some keywords which I felt could be used as points, as examples to substantiate some very general points. Like if a question on that computer software that is related to genetics or use in genetics comes in a 10 marker, you don't have an option to skip that. So, and since that has come in a PYQ, you have to prepare on that. You have to have some 15-20 points so that if at all a direct question asked, you can answer that directly, or if it is not asked directly, you can still try to answer, like use that content in some other way related to genetics, related to physical, biological, anthropology. So in that syllabus, DU syllabus, I got some pretty good content, like what is the syllabus area. So then I googled a little, some fresh thinkers, like Indian psychology, there are some thinkers, Kakkad sir or someone, like some interesting content, interesting softwares used, interesting tools used, and these can be used as dimensions also. Like what are the softwares used, what are the tools used in physical, in biological. So it gives you a structure also, even if it is a very generic question for 10 marker, you get a structure on how to divide the answer. It gives more dimensions, it makes it more rounded. Then there's a question on role of marriage regulations in traditional societies for strengthening. That's again general, very marriage India, all that is direct question you can directly use. Personal identification based on skeletal remains. Again, so I feel this part also should be prepared very well. Applications of anthropology, applications of genetics, all that, because it is being asked again and again, and the fact that these are related to current topics. So at least one or two questions, there are chances that they'll try to add some current relevance questions that might be connected to policy, might be connected to some technological aspects. So be a little, like have some fresh content, some detailed content on the applications of Anthro. And these are some areas where I feel the content is generally less. Even when we are taking from an institute or from toppers or somewhere, because generally not much questions have been asked, generally there will be some areas like longitudinal study or applications of Anthro, applications of DNA. Like there will be some content but not much content. But try to innovate a little, have 2-page good notes, have some names of the technology used, names of studies used, new anthropological studies, cohort studies, and etc. Then this time around I try to add for socio I added Mandar Patki sir's notes extensively. I added to my own, to L2A, to Basme sir's book, to JSTOR research articles, all that. And for bio I added Narayan Amit sir's notes also. So I just took the value addition, I didn't take everything because most of it is same, but value addition is different. So I took every value addition, then added to my set of value addition, compiled everything. It was reduced to some 10 pages of value addition just before, as I said, going for paper 1. I looked into that, and before paper 2 also, Mandar Patki sir's notes on Archeo, on Socio, I did refer that also, and that also in just value addition form. Like what are the studies, everything was reduced to 20, 30, 40 pages max. And so one insight that I got from Narayan Amit sir's, I think, so he had got about 300 to 310 if I'm not wrong, and he had gotten much more in paper 1. So he was saying he was very confident in bio and physical part, because that is relatively more concrete, and if you prepare well and if you've written well, chances are that you will get more, and you don't have to rely on the chances of UPSC and correcting person and all that. Sociocultural, how much ever good you write, you never know. So I've been more of a sociocultural person. I enjoy writing and reading all that, but this time around I try to be strong. I prepared archaeology fairly well from the first attempt, but then, so point being, I think it's important to focus on the bio part also. Archaeology, evolution, genetics, applications, like these are very factual, scientific things, names, very, very content heavy. But I think it's important that you become confident and you have some very good content, diagrams, analysis and all that in that, because chances are that you will get more marks if a 15 marker, 20 marker comes from that question. And let's say even the question on computer software, like if you had by any chance prepared some very good content for that question, you didn't have to think about any other combination just for the sake of it. And that question also is not an out of the blue question. It is part of the PYQ. They've been asking about the applications in technology related to genetics. So what is application? It's related to computer, it's related to software, it's related to other biotech and all that. So if you're preparing biotech, you should logically arrive at the conclusion that you should prepare a little bit of note about computer software also. So in that way, it is connected to PYQ. PYQ leads you to areas. So be sure to find those insights as well. And be strong on the physical, biological anthropology. Section B, polygenic inheritance direct, prehistoric application of Rakhi Gadi direct. So in these type of questions, Rakhi Gadi not direct, but still you would have heard some insights about why it was in use. Connected with IVC, connected with points of IVC, and then connected with things like how the migration happened, like how early settlement of the Indian subcontinent happened, how it could be connected like before event, after event, just like in history. Connected with migration, connected with the previous event, migration, connected with evolution, connected with primates, connected with the later colonization of the entire Indian subcontinent. And you can even connect it with how it impacted the racial setup or configuration of India and all that. Then glottochronology, I still have no idea what that is, 10 marker question, but I did write something. I don't remember what I wrote, but I don't know. But I don't actually think one 10 marker makes much of an impact. If it is like it's literally out of the thing, out of the horizon, it comes from some random question comes, you are equally at a disadvantage like the rest of the people. Nobody knows, even you don't know, it's okay, you just complete the question if you have time. Some people tend to even skip the question, but I have always felt that it's important to attempt the question. Menopausal symptoms, again direct question if you have. So I try to prepare some extra content even for things like menarche, menopause, and there were some areas where population studies, like these are some areas where we'll only have very little content, but then if you can add some new study, like even paper in the newspaper, there will be some content, some fresh content, like have some little more content, some dimensions prepared, so that you have some content to write for a 20 marker. Even if a 20 marker question comes on just about age at menarche or age at menopause or something about population, some particular cohort study, you should have dimensions to write those 20 marks. So even population should not be ignored. But again, it's a 10 marker question, menopausal symptoms, you can easily write, it's directly correct in the syllabus. William Ogburn and cultural lag. I don't have any idea about William Ogburn, but cultural lag I do know. So 10 marker I wrote about cultural lag, and I try to connect it with the related content. So if the only place where you will have like bouncers is in 10 marker, like where you don't know, like one or two questions could possibly come. But if you can get some background ideas, some content, some criticism connected, like add more dimensions, add more analysis, add some related thinkers, some criticism and some relevance and all that, then you will get more marks. It's very much possible you will get more marks. Then there are some questions like so Arjun Appadhare's concept. So these questions some new thinkers might be asked, but I think another thing that you should possibly keep in mind is that you should keep an open mind. Like let's say you are getting new value addition, new thinkers, you are looking into postmodernism. Like I was interested in postmodernism, post-structuralism and all just out of random curiosity, and I had some time somewhere. So there I got to know about a lot more new thinkers. There are like a lot more thinkers on linguistics, on archaeology, how they are connected, how you can connect cultural, bio, all that. And in that way, those are things which you can add in Indian Anthro paper 2, in paper 1, in archaeology, in linguistics. So Arjun Appadharai generally is not studied separately, but in globalization, in modernization, the studies are separately studied. So sometime in your notes or in top notes or institute notes, you will come across just the person's name and one line. But out of curiosity, if you can Google it, even if you don't make a note of it, just Google what did he say, what is he known for, what are the ideas that he are associated with. So sometimes it is not realistically possible to make content about every thinker that comes across your way, but you can at least read about a little, one para Googling Copilot or something, AI or something, you can just Google quickly and have one para or like some associated ideas, so that if at all something comes, you have a better chance of attempting it. Okay, paper 2 should I discuss? I think paper 2 is also fairly predictable. I'll just quickly see. So paper 2 last year also I'll just quickly discuss. So there's one question on material culture and archaeology direct. You have content connected with paper 1, material culture, material, non-material parts, Malinowski, all that you can connect. Interface, and you can add criticism also. The whole point of 10 marker is just don't support the statement or support the proposition. Try to add criticism, make it rounded, add relevance and all that. Interface between Purushartha and Ashrama, again Dharma, Purushartha, all that is being asked. Have some fresh content also. So this time around I added some content for those paper 2 minor topics also, because from JSTOR, like just Google the terms which are there in the syllabus or have come in PYQ separately. Have some fresh content, if not fresh content, some theoretical content. And then you can connect it with relevance to Indian society, to crime or law and order, something like 1 or 2 points extra you can add in terms of analysis. Jajmani system, continuity and change, very direct question. Like liberally use the thinkers and all that. Prehistoric rock arts from Uttarakhand, you have that sites, I've forgotten the name, like add the sites, add the relevance, add 1 diagram or 2, it improves the presentation like anything. And I think presentation is also important. If it's a 10 marker, like don't overdo it. Sometimes for 10 markers you will be having 20 marker content, and for 20 marker you will be having 10 marker content. But then 10 marker content, just stick to it that you are putting it not more than 10-12 points. And you have a decent diagram, you space it well, you have an introduction, you have a little bit space in between. Like it should be easy on the eyes for the evaluator as well. Like I last 2 times, it's a hindsight bias and it might not be entirely true, but I felt last 2 attempts I had gotten about 260, 270, and I tried to add a lot of content. Like I had prepared a lot value addition like anything, and even for 10 marker I would like add 20 points, 15-20 points, like wherever there was space I would add extra content and all that, but I didn't really feel that it fetched me marks. So this time around I stuck to the 10 points, spaced it well, added 1 diagram, made it like studies all were there, content, fresh content, all that was there, but made it I stuck to the space and the word limit. Then the question on tribes are backward Hindus, Professor G.S. Gurye, again there's enough content. IVC was the first settlement of the big civilization. So that is directly related to archaeology. So you have all the pre-IVC. So archaeology, those things are also important. So there are some areas where again I think content is a little less. Like the pre-IVC sites, like the Gujarat, the Deccan culture before IVC, pre-Chalcolithic or Chalcolithic cultures, which contributed to IVC or were parallel to IVC. So those things like separately, Nagar or what, I don't remember what is in Amgon and all those sites, like how all those sites contributed, how they were in part of the evolution or in the vicinity at the same time, how the first sites emerged in the northwest, in Gujarat, which all sites, how they contributed. So those are like directly, so this question might sound like related directly to Indus Valley was the first settlement of the big civilization, but the question is not about Indus Valley. So you can write about Indus Valley civilization, but the question is about archaeology, how there were pre-IVC sites, how Indian subcontinent was colonized before IVC, and which all are the sites, what are this thing, how it was connected to the larger evolution of mankind and all that. Discuss the basic tenets of Jainism, impact on the Indian society, again direct, but here also sometimes I feel content, Buddhism, Jainism, those areas, impact of the religions on tribal society and on Indian society. I think generally the content has a tendency to write about the basic tenets of Jainism, how it impacted agriculture, how it impacted this thing, all that is important, but I think a little more content analysis, like thinkers, I think Stanley Tambaya or some thinkers did go into a little more detail and on about how Jainism impacted, how there was a dichotomy within Jainism, like there is a stress on material culture and at the same time on giving up, on liberation. like a little more analysis on those things in paper 2 also, if you can go through. You can get it in JSTOR, IGNO, all that. Just Google impact Jainism and get content. You'll get content. But then those are areas I feel where not much content is there. But then it's very much possible that a 15 marker could come. It has already come in 10 markers. It has already come in PYQ. So you have to prepare a very good 15 marker note on that.
Sir, in previous attempts, you also included research article and other books.
Last year also, I mean last
66 marks to 327. Content is same, sir.
Content is same in the sense, one thing I felt is like I used to add like very random thinkers. So I think somewhere this time I tried to stick to little more textbook thinkers, although there were new thinkers. So the new ones were only in the periphery. I kept it to the periphery, like introduction, conclusion, and some analysis where the textbook thinkers are not there. But this time around I tried to add professor like Vidyarthi and all the regular ones in the main body a lot more, and then the other ones were used only for embellishment. But in the last two attempts, because I was fascinated by new content, new thinkers, I somewhere felt I forgot about.
They could backfire there also.
Which one? The new thinkers. New thinkers could backfire. So I think new thinkers should be used sparingly, but it should be used. I feel like a little bit of uniqueness is important because it gives a little bit of flavor to your answer. But again, like rely more on some fresh ideas about thinkers that are there. Like as I said, Professor Saraswati, he is very important to Indian anthropology, all that. So his new ideas or his ideas which are not very famous, his even thinker like B.N. Saraswati is not that famous. You learn about L.P. Vidyarthi but not so much of B.N. Saraswati. So like use thinkers who are not very famous but are very relevant in the textbook and in India. And the other ones like Harari or very random ones, use it sparingly, but you can use them. And as I said, like I feel you shouldn't overdo an answer also. The last two times I used to do 15 marker question, also like 20 marker, 25 marker. So I think at some point you should make it crisp, make it short, reduce it, make it easy for the reader to read and appreciate it. Then Sanskritization, again direct question. Was Mesolithic the first towards sedentary way of life? Direct. All these are direct. I think most of the questions in paper 2 were direct. Scheduled areas, Ramapathikas, Shivapathikas, villages, Little Republic, Dravidian languages, all are direct. Karma and rebirth. Is annihilation of caste possible? Direct. Compare Risley and Sarkar. Risley and Sarkar, there was this doubt whether some people wouldn't have read about Sarkar. I had read about Sarkar, so I did have content, but I feel even, so that question is coming for, I think in that 20 combination question. So if you have absolutely no idea, if you're not confident, possibly you can skip that combination. But if you have some idea and if you have no idea, let's say it comes in a 10 marker, you have to attempt it. So in that way, I think you have good idea about Risley, what are all the different things, so if you have studied Risley very well, in the criticism itself, Sarkar comes. So even if you didn't separately study Sarkar, you could have used that content. Let's say even in the criticism, you didn't come across Sarkar. Then with the criticism of Risley, you can safely guess what Risley did not do, which was pointed out by thinkers like Sarkar. So you have to safely, like a little bit of intelligent guessing is important in mains also, but be sure to play around safely. So play less on Sarkar and more on Risley, but then be sure to like include Sarkar, like if you have no content whatsoever. But if you have no idea whatsoever and it's a combination question, skip that combination and take another combination. So in so there was a question on contribution of S.C. Roy. It's a direct question, everyone would have prepared. There's a question on distribution of tribes in different geographical regions. Identify distinct traditional features. Again, direct question. If not, even if you feel it's not a direct question, not separately given, it's a PYQ direct question. So there has been repeated questions on comparing tribes of middle central India to northeast to the islands. So that is one area which you should prepare. If you don't get some good content from the institute or from toppers, it's your responsibility to make sure that you have a separate content, you prepare a good content on that. So I would treat that as a direct question because it's part of PYQ. Then there's a question on how are OBCs identified, enumerating the important features, elaborate the recent changes in their social and economic life. This is slightly difficult, but then again, I think Rajni Kothari and thinkers like them have spoken about how on the dominant caste, how things are changing, how caste is still an issue, how and all that, and then you can add the current relevance and all that, how there are very vulnerable groups within the other backward caste groups, how there are like there is a regional distribution, like you can add analysis things, and then possibly add be sure to add different angles, be sure to include both issues and positives, to include thinkers on both sides, and also try to come up with recommendations by some strong thinkers, some positive recommendations, like going forward how should their upliftment be done about, some concrete recommendations. And you can add some current relevance or like things in news, some protests or some things in news related to the question can also be added. Again, I don't think it's a very different question. Paper 2 generally I feel most of the questions are direct in the sense it's from PYQ or from a syllabus area. So you can fairly, if you can predict if you have brainstormed and made some good content, I think you can work around with the same. Then shifting terrains of Indian tribal policies in colonial and post-colonial periods. I think it's a very direct question. You should have very good content. It is there in all the available material. You can even embellish it a little more with your own content. Critically examine how the displacement of tribal communities, again direct, illustrate with suitable ethnographic examples. So in such examples, try to include the textbook thinkers like how Professor Vidyarthi in Ranchi Industrial Complex, or how, and I try to include some from like so this dimension you get that islands have to be looked into, northeastern areas have to be looked into. So I try to add some thinkers from northeast also. So there's an anthropologist called Dolly Kekon. She studied on migration and how it impacted the life in Northeast India, how women were still at a disadvantaged situation in the local self-governments and all that, in Northeast in particular. So the thinker is also from there. She's an anthropologist and gives you an angle from Northeast. While most of the like you have other content on thinkers and studies from Central India, you are adding from Northeast, you are adding from islands, some from J&K or somewhere you can add. If you get PVTGs from some urban area also you can add. Shifting terrains of Indian tribal policy. So here make sure you just don't add, it's not just about adding the case studies, try to evaluate the tribal schemes policies of India. Like what is the tribal policy 2007, I think Professor Srivastava has a critical appraisal on the same. Then you have new things that are coming up, forest policy change, how that could negatively impact, what are the criticisms. Like try to add positives also and negatives, how the Jungle Mahal policy or like different things. Kerala is doing some educational reforms for tribals in their own language. Like you can add examples, policies of state governments of India, of colonial this thing, positive, negative both. Elucidate the role of anthropology in nation building. Again, very good question, very direct if you have good content. So paper 2, the whole point is like it's mostly predictable. Have good content, use the textbook thinkers a lot more, but fresh content. And when you are doing case studies, add a little more detail to your content. So that is about paper 1, paper 2. If you have any questions.
What is the right time to join test series?
I think, so which attempt are you giving? 2024 or 25? 24 attempt, now it's prelims, no? So like prelims is in 1 month. I think now you should ideally focus on prelims, and after prelims, like if you're clearing, if you're thinking you'll clear, like immediately join test series. I think between the prelims and mains is good enough time for preparing for test series. But if you are starting in June and you are preparing for the next prelims in next June, and if you want to get an idea whether what you are doing and you have done one reading, I think after one reading is done is a good time to try for test series. And then it's also about the timing, like even if one reading is not entirely done but prelims is over, you have cleared prelims, then you should go for test series. And test series again, so as I said, my approach was like only in my first series attempt I gave test series. After that, but I think it's always better, like between a choice between test series and not test series, I think it's better, but I did not have time and I did not feel that confident to write tests also. So I chose to prefer more on brainstorming and note making. But I think after prelims you can give. Now to after prelims, once you clear the prelims you can give it. If you're giving next year's attempt, after one reading you can give.
So IGNOU notes are very bulky.
Very bulky. हाँ. हाँ. Like.
क्वेश्चन कभी आ जाता है.
हाँ, कभी आता भी नहीं. और like make sure like in the first thing, the first priority is that you take content only for areas where you are short on content. Like let's say PYQ, there is a question, you don't have content. You search content from PYQ, EPG or IGNO and take that content. Second is like you already have good content, you just want to embellish. So take 1 or 2 studies like famous thinkers, famous different thing, contemporary relevant thing. Just take those things. You just scan it quickly for that particular area, and because most of the content in EPG I have realized is not needed. Like it's not related to the PYQ or syllabus. Then don't even like open it. Just look into the PDFs which are relevant. Like directly the topic is relevant or connected to the PYQ.
So, for fantastic opportunity, if you have any queries, please. About your revision.
Huh?
About your revision.
Revision. Revision, I think optional is very important. So as I said, make short notes every time you revise. Revision, so I made notes from L2A. I added from like different online EPG, IGNO and all that. So initially my notes was, I had one book for I think 3-4 notebooks, like after L2A and all these things were there. I had 3-4 notes, books, big books of notes. Till my prelims was over, that was my notes. So I had 4 big books and all that. Then I kept adding to those. But then in second, third attempt, I tried to reduce it. So finally this time around I would have had like finally I had only about 100-page notes for the whole thing. So it's like every time you revise, you try to reduce it. Like reduce, don't remove the content, but remove the verbs, connecting words, sentences, like make it into just words that are things which you will forget, just the thinker, just the relevant facts of the study, put it in brackets, put it in one line, put it into diagram, like examples, one Indian map, small map, you can put everything in that, like connected, all that. Then revision, I think, so Anthro revision, what? No daily habit of revising. Like let's say you're giving 24 attempt. So prelims is over, now you won't be revising. Now if you are saturated with GS, even now you can do, but preferably go for prelims and CSAT and all that. Be sure that you clear prelims first. After prelims, like from day one, so I tried that 3 months before, between prelims and mains, I tried to generally do both mains, GS and Anthro every day, like mornings usually, I mean whatever suits you. I did morning to afternoon kind of GS, and after that optional. I divided, like I had, so I had one list of topics where every time I felt I was not so confident and where I felt content was not still up to a very satisfactory mark. So those that I had a list that I would at least weekly once or I would try to add content or brainstorm or look into those questions. Then I had a list of 1-page list of questions in PYQ which I felt I didn't have good content, or the question was very like it was a bouncer type of question. Then so revision also, I feel one is like basic revision, like basic notes which you have to revise, like we at least in between prelims and mains, I think you can do really daily revision, but divide it. Like I think you can complete after one reading, you can complete the entire Anthro paper 1 in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Let's say okay, you are first attempt, so in 1 month at least you can revise, and paper 2 you can complete in 1 week because paper 2 is very less. So in like 5 weeks you can do one complete revision. Next revision you can complete in 2-3 weeks. Like because you've made it shorter, you've highlighted it, you've rounded, circled it, done things like that. And third time, fourth time you again make it shorter. Between prelims and mains you can revise it at least 4 to 5 times. And after prelims you have that, after GS you have that 1 week. In that time also, I think personally if you have made it very short, you should revise it 2 to 3 times. And between paper 1 and paper 2 also you should be able to revise it quickly. Like just quickly glance the whole paper 2 notes. So by that time your notes should be in that way. If not so, at least you should have separate notes on things which you will forget, studies or things which are important, which are difficult to remember.
Sir, biology is a like new questions are there.
Pinath is there, topper notes, like I think some of the topper notes are good enough, like this Narayana Mithra's notes are actually good. Like basic content is like whatever is in Pinath or what is there in Basmi or whatever you are getting from L2A is good enough. It is only about some value addition and some questions which are not there, like in some PYQ you will get some questions which are out of the box. So you should prepare on those. So even all these toppers are doing the same thing, like they will look into PYQ, prepare for things which are not there in this thing. and then prepare good content for whatever is there directly in the syllabus, like application of DNA technology, how the gene expression works, how that works and all that. Biology also, I think it comes from whatever is there in the syllabus and PYQ. Like syllabus, PYQ, within those two circles, everything in Anthro it gets done. Like I think it's also about, I think it's equally important. I think I would have put it 60-40 GS 60 and 40 Anthro. There are people who put it 60 and optional and 40. Like I still feel you can clearly not say in which paper will get you that jump of 20-30 marks. Like someday your GS 1, like I got 127, 129 in GS 4. I like first 1-2 attempts I prepared really well in ethics. And I enjoy reading and preparing notes for ethics. So I did not reduce time, but this time around I had made notes, I read the same thing. But I am saying if you are very confident and if you think you can get 130 in ethics, that is like a 30 marks jump, which might not necessarily come from another paper. So I think it's like 50-50, 60-40, you should equally balance both optional and this thing. Mainly GS, the thing is like you don't have to read a lot and make lots of content. Optional, because you have to read a lot of books, you have to reduce it into notes, it might take a little more time. So first two readings put equal or more on optional, but after that, once you have notes, once you have read the basic books and all that, then possibly you can give equal for GS or 60 for GS and 40. It's like at which stage you are. Initially I think possibly you can give more for optional because you have to read a lot more. After that I think because current is more for GS, balance it out afterwards.
Any more queries?
Prelims is becoming very unpredictable, so like mine should also just be seen as suggestions. I think prelims, one thing I felt is like the static part, economy, polity, they fetch you around 20-25 questions if I'm not wrong, even now. So cutoff last time is about 75, I think 75 is the cutoff. So 75 is like net 38 questions. So 38, let's say 45, you have to get 45 correct with accuracy. So if you get 20-25 good, and polity economy, what I have realized is like last 2-3 years it's entirely conceptual and some of the questions are repeating or some of the questions are like relatively very easy. Like if you have basic understanding on inflation, how it is connected to exchange rate, how polity also fundamental right, DPSP, state, how there is no absolute power for anybody, like judicial review is possible for almost everything. So if you have like basic understanding about how the system works and you've done some tests, conceptual clarity, if you have polity and economy, I think you will get 20, let's say in 25 questions you will get 20 good questions. Then history also I think is part of the static. Again, if you add history, polity and economy, I think you will get about 35 questions. In that, history is slightly tricky, like options and all that are very difficult, but still half of the questions at least from modern, ancient, medieval will be direct or somewhere you can eliminate and arrive at the answer. So you are still getting around 28-30 questions. So then you have to get only 8 or 10 questions, let's say 15 to be on the safer side. So you need only 15 out of 50 or 55 questions. It's like attempt more. Like I would suggest that you attempt 85 at least, 80-85 at least, because you have to eliminate and do a little bit of intelligent guessing. So attempt more and then be strong on the static, history, polity, economy. Geography, the tendency I feel for prelims is very less, like direct theoretical questions have been very less, but the dynamic part, the areas, places in news, some community news, all that is being asked. So have basic understanding, but don't overdo geography is what I feel based on the pattern, but you never know. So do one reading about 11th, 12th, have basic understanding on geography and then focus, like be very strong on polity, economy, history. So you will get around 30-35 you will get. So then it's only about guessing the current part. Also do one current compilation or current this thing very strongly, and then you will be and attempt more. So you will at least get 10 out of 40. Even if you attempt 40, getting 10 even probabilistically is possible. So I think if you are strong on the static, if you attempt more and if you have done one current properly, I think you will be fairly able to clear the prelims. And CSAT also, please be strong. Like I have neglected CSET every time. Luckily with English and some logical reasoning I got through. I used to get 70s, 80s max. But I think it's important to look into CSAT. At least this year paper was very, very difficult. So just to be on the safer side, do math also. Okay. I think test series are also important. Like you get free tests, no? You can download it. You can look into the PYQ options. Do PYQs, all 10-year PYQs properly. And tests also, I think, again as I said, conceptual questions are asked more in economy, polity. So if you can do more questions on polity, economy, you can like be very clear on the concepts. So that will be good, because polity revising Lakshmikant is very difficult. But if you like do proper 10 tests of polity, you can complete the whole thing. Like questions which are possibly difficult and all, you will get an answer. And history and the other if it's a good test series, I don't know which ones are good, but if you feel the quality is good, then I think history, environment also, because the current will also get covered, important things. And it's sometimes when you're saturated, I feel if you're saturated in revision, go for tests. Like keep tests ready, but do the revision. Whenever you get saturated, do the test, but don't look at the marks, because even if you get 140 or if you get 40, it doesn't really matter, hardly matters. I used to get 50, 60, like after first attempt I got around 110, 108 or something. After that I got 98, 99, 100 this time. But in the tests in between, I used to get 1 week for prelims test, because every time in the cycle. So I used to get 50, 60. But it hardly mattered. In the final exam, 90 if you're getting, that's all that matters. So test, do it, but don't look at the marks. Like I think there's an amount of luck also, but first serious attempt, if you have done the basics strongly, and if you've done PYQs and all that, and if you like, prelims is also about a little bit of mindset. Like you go to the exam hall, you have to attempt the 85, you might be knowing only 10 questions. So the rest of the 75, like you have to arrive at the answer. You have to go there and think, if I don't know, the other person also doesn't know, and somehow I have to clear the exam. I'm not here to like look at the difficulty level of the question. Whatever question comes, even if a question comes on something that I don't know, like what would an intelligent person arrive at? Somehow use the information, somehow guess it. 50-50 questions, go for it. Like use some logic and arrive at the answer.
But sir, I guess every time, like I eliminated two statements and telling two, I marked the wrong statement.
Like that risk is always there, but it's like at what level you are. If you are doing 60 questions and you know 40-45, then possibly you can reduce the number of questions. But if you are doing like like for me at least, the questions which I knew clearly was very less. Like last time I remember it was 10 or 15. Before that it was 20. Like last 3 years it's very dynamic. 25 questions are all that you know clearly. And the rest of the questions you have to eliminate, you have to arrive at the answer. So there was a question on IMF. Like be open to the questions. Like use your logic, and if you've been following current, like try to use which was in news more, which you think is more relevant. Like I remember a question, like been telling everywhere, IMF question. Like I didn't know any of the funds. So I didn't know any of the funds. I don't know, like it's not realistically possible to learn about every fund that every institution releases and all that. But IMF was in news extensively. It was saving Pakistan, it was saving Sri Lanka, many Afghanistan, like many countries. So I knew IMF was in news. It was more relevant. It was more pertinent in that particular year, because I've been following news. And the other bodies are not so much in news, and it is a fund related to some stability. So logically it should be IMF. So in that way you should, like somehow if you've been following current and all that, you should be able to arrive at the questions, arrive at the answers. Like even if you get 10 wrong, you will still get 10-15 correct. So net you will still be at an advantage, and some amount of risk taking should be there. I think prelims will increasingly be about
Patterns are changing only 3
that is there.
Some are only 70 questions will be attempted.
I don't know. I mean, as I said, it's all about 70 questions can be attempted if you feel you are confident about 50 of those, 45 of those. But if you,
90
I think 85, 90. I have people who do 95.
so for passes,
I don't think there can be any objective answer.
There is no objective answer. But I would suggest do 80, 85.
passes, they are very confusing.
Passage.
Then techniques.
You're saying CSET? CSET, I think, I mean, I generally depend entirely on English. I think the simple technique is like don't use your common sense in that. Just see what is there in that passage and see if it is directly. If it's written in the passage, you can deduce it directly from the passage. Like there are things which you will know, and then you will think that would have been implied in the passage. but use directly what is implied in the passage, nothing that you can derive from your own knowledge.
Implication में सर कई
हाँ.
बाहर से भी कलर
हाँ, but still most likely there will be 4 options, 1 will be directly wrong, 3 will be close, in that 2 will be very close. So it should be one amongst the 2, and in that also just look into the passage and what is more directly, more probable to be connected directly to the question. Go with that. I mean, some amount of risk is there, but I think English is still fairly direct these days. Maths is becoming very difficult, but don't rely entirely on English, because once, if any particular year there is only 10 questions from English, so you still have to clear the CSAT.
Sir, that time for tests and
Like quickly scan for logical or maths questions which you directly think you know, then do it. You can quickly complete it in 1 minute or 2 minutes or so. If you get that net 28, 30, I used to do only 40 questions because I am not very strong in math. So I did 40, mostly 27 English. I'll do everything in English, and some math, some logical reasoning I'll get. I'll first do math and logical reasoning. I'll get only 10, 13 questions, but I'll quickly scan and like some chair direction, something like that. I'll do those. Those 13 almost entirely will be correct. Then English, like if you find like math and reasoning, like scan through the questions, get 20, 30, how much ever you're getting, and then just scan through English also. If you think math is very difficult, go for English. Like go for English also. Very, very much. 12, 14 is very good amount of time.
So how can you balance knowledge part and strategy?
Like first, like make a list of what is the most important things. Like GS and all, I've always reduced it to spectrum, Lakshmikant's 11th and 12th history, geography. These are 4 things I feel is like must read. Beyond that, everything is like you can read for increasing your knowledge base. You cover these, you have a basic understanding, you look at the PYQs, you know the pattern, then you do tests, and then if you feel you need to read more, like history and all, I used to read a lot more because there are factual questions that come. I always felt for prelims at least. Mains, I think it's very little is needed, you need analysis and all that. But prelims, I felt if you have more content, possibly you can eliminate it better. So I used to read after one whole reading was over. You read the most important first, and then complete optional and all that. After that, if you get time, then you can add content, like read a little more on areas which you feel you are underconfident. 12 months is more than enough. 10 months, 6 months is more than enough.
Back to asking
Like during while preparing the notes, when should we be doing the value addition things? After finishing each topic or after getting to the
Like whenever you feel time is there, like L2A, I think sir used to give case studies then and there. But then after some time, I used to look in some places. I'll feel there is less content here. This is not enough. Then I'll add later at a revision stage. So you can add it at, I think revision stage will be better because you have a basic understanding. Then you will understand which part of the case study should be added, like which dimension is important. So I think revision is better, but then you can add at any stage.
So how to know like where we have to stop? Like after this, we should move to the next one.
Like you have content for PYQ, you have content to like 20 marker content for PYQ and for any area in the syllabus. After that, anything is extra. So you prepare that for everything. Then anything more you want to do, you do it in the second round, third round, subsequent rounds.
Sir, one last question for you. Sir, how do you prepare type questions we are not confident enough for them?
How do you?
Pair type questions.
What type questions?
Pair.
Pair type questions. Pair type questions, I think, like it is difficult, but one or two pairs you might be able to eliminate. Then there will be 50-50. Then try to look at the logic or the Hindi sounding this thing. Like somehow you will have to attempt. Like it's about at what stage you are standing. Like since there are 10-20 pair type questions, I think it's not possible to just skip all those. So try to arrive at the answer with some logic, some like this doesn't sound like South Indian, this doesn't sound like this thing, this timeline doesn't fit in. Some logic you try to fit in. And then try to look at the Hindi sounding this thing, Sanskrit or whatever word, how does it sound if you get some logic. It is guessing. Beyond a point, we have to admit it is a little level of intelligent guessing. But if you don't have, if you're not sure about the rest of the questions, you have to attempt. A little bit of bravery, I think you have to do that.
Sir, for pre these days they are giving this how many of the statements are correct. For such type of questions, if we don't know the facts, is there a way of
again, as I said, if you already have done 60 and you're confident about the 60, maybe do only less of those. But if you have done 30, you have to do those. Like confidently do those. Like use some logic, be confident. Everyone is guessing. Everyone is getting 50-50 using some logic. You have to use those. I think ultimately this exam is also about getting, like, doing the best, I mean, making the best possible choice out of a limited amount of options, limited amount of information that you have. So do that. I mean, try that options. Like if you don't know, still arrive at the answer. Like try to eliminate. This is unlikely. This is more likely. This is in use. This is not in use. This part was more relevant for history. This is more relevant. Some logic, try to use them and arrive at 50-50 for sure. From 50-50 also try to eliminate and arrive at the answer.
Yeah, so, and by the end of the day, that intelligent guessing will come from your protected interaction. You've got to be more informed about the subject. So, there couldn't possibly be any objective answer to that. But, well, I would very heartily extend my thanks personally and on behalf of L2A to Sidharth to take out his precious time and to comprehensively, in a detailed manner, share all the strategies, everything that he has gone through over past 4 years now. And what I could figure out that by the end of the day, it is a heady combination of consistent efforts, being more informed about everything, every certain thing that you do, and then of course it's about adapting yourself to the changing scenario and sticking to that strategy that you have to pursue. So thank you very much, Sidharth, for taking out your time, and I hope that this interaction has already helped you. It has already kind of streamlined you to think and strategize your further endeavors. Thank you so much, Sidharth, and best of luck to all of you. I wish that some of you make it to the other side of the table here soon. So best of luck and thank you very much.